time? I think it's time.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it is. Look at that. Are we live? Yeah, we're live.
Are we good?
Oh, nice.
Everyone still awake?
I don't know. Hey, I'm happy to be here. Look at that. Ta-da!
Hello.
Yeah. Hi.
Welcome. We're the ones who will be keeping you from your lunch.
Yeah. Lock the doors, everybody. Quick, barricade them. Hey, I'm so glad you're all here. Look at that. We're back. Look, before we get too far down the road, we've got some very important business we need to address up front. I think you and I need to take a selfie. That's fact. Can we take a selfie? Are you going to be okay with that?
If not, hide.
Do you all accept my GDPR cookies? Okay, great. Okay, fantastic. Okay, let's take a photo. Okay, ready? Pretend like you're happy. Just do the thing. One more time. Ready, steady, open source. Oh, thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that. I am going to take that photo, and I'm going to show it to my daughter, and I'm going to say, see, they listen to me. Great.
All right. So
I think we're ready.
We've been talking a lot about full stack, and we thought well, you know backend stuff, and I know some front end stuff, and
lot. Yeah.
There's a bell.
There's a bell. It's time to go. Yeah.
It's time to go.
No, I'm really excited about this.
So we're like, well, if we code it together, we're kind of like a full stack team. Maybe we can build something.
I think so.
And learn about what's cool in Spring.
I think so. We should do it. And honestly, I'm really excited about this because I really want to show you all some of the cool stuff we're working on in the Spring ecosystem. And if I'm honest with you, my friends, this is no easy task. Okay, it's not an easy task. I actually struggled with this for quite a while, actually. And I thought, well, maybe we could show ye old Spring Pet Clinic. How many of you have seen this sample application? This is a sample application that demonstrates and integrates a bunch of different components in the Spring ecosystem. And it's an old application that's been around for nigh on 20 years. Don't get me wrong, though. They've updated it as recently as last week. But that said, it's very old. So old, in fact, that it spawned numerous imitations, right? There's different, variants of it that have code from all sorts of different ecosystems. You've got the Spring AI, REST, you've got the Pet Clinic one, you've got microservices, Vaadin, nice, Istio, Tui. You got the HTMX stuff, you've got, all sorts of different implementations here. So I thought we could look at that, but that feels a little much.
That's a little much for 45 minutes.
Too many possible flavors, permutations, and moving parts. So I thought, well, what if we did something in the same spirit as that, right? Pets, animals, like dogs and cats and stuff, right? Everybody loves dogs, right? And everybody loves their pets and dogs.
They are the best.
They are the best.
Dogs are the best.
Dogs are great. I love dogs. I love dogs, except my dog. I do not love my dog. He's a terrible, terrible dog. His name is Peanut. Peanut is just the worst boy. The worst of the boys. I mean, just a very, very bad dog. And you might wonder, well, why do you keep such a terrible, terrible dog? There's 3 reasons. The first, of course, is, look, even bad dogs deserve good homes. Okay, so that's obvious. There's that. That's a precept that underpins everything. Number 2, and I'm just going to be level with you here, is ego. Okay, ego. You see, in my home, my partner and my daughter both speak 5 languages. But 3.5. So if that stupid dog was not there, then I would be the stupidest in the house. That will not stand. It will not stand. So we keep the dog for that reason as well. And then there's a 3rd reason, this one's sort of self-evident. He's just really cute, right? He is a very, very cute dog. Pure evil, but cute. Very, very cute, but also malice, pure malice, right? You're experiencing him right now in the absolute best way to experience him, through a photo on a different continent, right? It's the best way to experience this dog. Now, he reminds me of another dog about which I learned during the pandemic named Prancer. And this is Prancer. Prancer's owner wanted to find a new home for this dog in the pandemic. And I learned about this by watching TV, which is a weird thing to do, but that's, we did weird things in the pandemic. One of the things I did was I watched the news as it aired on TV, as opposed to like on YouTube the next day, And so this woman was trying to find a new home, and she had this ad that is hysterical and that went viral. She said, okay, I've tried. I've tried for the last several months to post this dog for adoption and make him sound palatable. The problem is he's just not. There's not a very big market for neurotic, man-hating, animal-hating, children-hating dogs that look like gremlins. But I have to believe there's someone out there for Prancer because I am tired, and so is my family. Every day, we live in the grips of the demonic Chihuahua hellscape he has created in our home. If you own a Chihuahua, you probably know what I'm talking about. He's literally the Chihuahua meme that describes them as being 50% hate and 50% tremble. She keeps going, and she says, I am convinced at this point that he's not a real dog, but more like a vessel for a traumatized Victorian child that now haunts our home. So yeah, who doesn't want this dog, right? And she keeps going. She says, Prancer wants to be your only child. Very ominous, very foreboding sort of description of a dog. And, also very cute, right? Very cute. Like, oh, so cute. But so anyway, so I think about this dog a lot. And I'm like, what if we could build a service to support adopting dogs, right? Even the bad ones like Peanut and Prancer. So I thought we could do that, as always, by going to my second favorite place on the internet, start.spring.io. And here, my friends, we have a few questions we have to answer. First of all, what do we want to call the service? Well, I want to call the service service because I am amazing with names. Amazing. I get that from my father. My father was amazing with names. When I was a small boy, we had a small white dog, and my father named him White Dog. Again, really great with names. Amazing with names. That said, my mom, she tells me all the time, she says, you're very lucky that I named you. And yeah, I don't want to. Naming is hard. That's fair. But also, I don't know what my father would have named me.
Boy?
Yeah, or worse, Anyway, so there's this. So I've got a service. Then, my friends, we have a choice of what version of Java we want to use. Look, one thing that is not here is Java 8. Java 8 ain't great, okay? It's distant technology from the ancient past. It has no place in modern society. It came out in 2014. President Obama was president in my country when Java 8 came out. It came out before Spring Boot did. So if you're using Java 8, you're using a technology that existed before Spring Boot. Inconceivable. So so we use at least Java 17, but I would never use Java 17, right? It's a vulgar version of the Java language. We can do much better. Instead, I imagine, we must use at least Java 21 or later. And look, Java 21, in my estimation, is the single most important release of the Java language ever. It is an incredible release, and there's a lot of good reasons for this. But remember, at the end of the day, it is technically superior in every way. It's faster, more syntax-rich, more performant, more operations-friendly, more secure. It's just technically superior in every way. It's also morally superior. You won't like the look of sadness and shame in your children's eyes when they see that you're using Java 8 in production. Don't do this. Yeah. Be the change that you want to see in the world. Do the right thing. Use at least Java 21 or later. And by the way, when I say later, remember, Java 23 is already GA. It's already GA. It's in the rear view mirror. We're on our way to Java 24. And if you're not already persuaded by the benefits of these newer languages, then let the math do the work for you. Remember, when Java 24 gets here, it'll be mathematically irrefutable that it is 3 times better than Java 8.
Yeah, I did the math.
That's a fact.
Checks out.
That's a fact. It's an amazing release. So we have no business being on anything less than Java 21, since this is a long-term supported version of Java. And ideally, you should be thinking about Java 24. Okay, so I have that version of Java. Now, we're going to add some dependencies. Vaadin, surely.
Yeah.
Dev tools, right? Okay. We want the web support, great. We want to build a Gravium native image, of course. I'm going to need a SQL database. I could use Postgres, but I want to have some vector store capabilities, great. I want the Spring AI module for for OpenAI, so I'll add that. And I need a data access framework. And for years I said, I'm going to use JPA because I make terrible life decisions. I don't even want to make the joke anymore. It's just not worth my time. So let's just do that and move on, okay? And I think that's it. I think that gives me, is that everything I need? Dev tools, web, Modular.
Yes.
I want to scale the code base, both in terms of the team working on it and in terms of runtime, so I'll use Spring Modular. Let's hit generate. We're going to open this up in my IDE, and it doesn't all that much matter what IDE you're using, so long as it supports the version of Java and the build tool of your specification, okay? Let me open that up. Here we go. Now, this is a data-centric application, and I've already got a database running on the same machine elsewhere that has our dogs, okay? So first things first, let me get rid of the I'm going to comment out the Vaadin dependency for now. We'll come back to it in a second. Okay, and Command-Shift-I, okay. And now I've got a database. I need to connect to it. So Spring Data Source password is secret. Spring Data Source username is my user. And the URL is JDBC PostgreSQL, okay, localhost my database. Now don't tell anybody this. This is our secret, okay? So there we go. This is the connection. I'm going to click on this little button here, hit test connection, hit apply, hit OK, go over there, refresh, okay, refresh that. We've got a table here. It says dog, okay? And if we click on the dog table, you can see we have information about the ID, the name, the description, the owner, and the image for each dog. And down here is our boy Prancer, right? ID 45, Prancer, described as a demonic, neurotic, man-hating, animal-hating, children-hating dog that looks like a gremlin, okay? This is taken directly from the advert, trying to sell this dog to people. So I want to build an advert. I want to build a system to support adopting this poor dog. So we're going to build a new package here. And it's going to be, remember, we're trying to build modular code, right? So I'm going to build a module, basically. I'm going to build a package called adoptions. But remember, the goal here is to write our code in such a way that we limit the blast radius of change. You make a change, it should not, like a spider on its web, it should not ripple and cascade to every other part of the code base. You should, whenever possible, limit the extent of that change to the place where you've made the change, right? And so you want to design your code in such a way that that is, as often as possible, true, right? And the reason you do this is because you want to limit the coordination required with other parts of the organization whenever you make a change. The faster you can make changes independent of other parts of the team, the faster you can go, right? Going back to Leif's amazing keynote earlier, talking about Conway's Law. This is the same rationale behind microservices. Microservices are a forcing function that force us to contemplate when we are writing our own thing and when we have to coordinate with other teams. That coordination happens along the API boundary. But either way, the result is the same. Autonomy allowing you to have speed, velocity, which gets you to production faster, right? The turnaround time is faster. So we're going to build a new class here called Dog Adoption Controller. Okay, first thing I'm going to do, get rid of the word public. There we go, don't need that. And let's see here, make that a little bit bigger. We're going to make this a controller. And this is going to do some work. It's going to talk to our database. So I'll create a dog adoption service, like so. This will be a Spring service. And this, in turn, is going to need a data entity. So I'll create a dog entity here. And I'm using Java's records. I love, 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 love records, okay? Really, really amazing, amazing feature. Just such a huge, huge, huge fan of Java records. Big, big fan, okay? Big fan, big, big fan. Okay, so there's that. Now this is obviously just part of a number of different features in the Java language, culminating really in Java 21, called data-oriented programming. And I won't get into all of this right now, but I refer you to Brian Getz's amazing InfoQ 2022 article looking at the precepts of this, right? And there's just a lot of features that, if you take them together, support this new paradigm. So when I use records, remember, this is just the beginning of the tip of the iceberg, so to speak, okay? Now, we're going to create a dog repository, and this repository will manage entities of type dog, whose primary key, of course, is of type integer. So dog, integer, voila. Okay? Now, let's actually create this service. I'm going to create a method here to adopt a dog. I'll take the dog ID and the string owner. Okay? And what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to inject this repository here. So private final dog repository. Add that there. Add that to the constructor. And, pretty straightforward. We need to get the dog from the repository if it exists, right? Dog ID. And if it's present, we're going to create a new dog. And in doing, we're going to update the owner, right? So I've got dog.description, dog.image, and then the owner will come in from this variable there. And then we're going to save it. And, we'll print out, hey, var updated, okay? System out updated or adopted this dog, right? So updated, voila. And let's see what that gives us. Now I need to actually call this from our controller. So let's inject that service here. I'll create a method here called void adopt. Same idea, int dog ID, string owner. It'll be a map, which is the JSON payload we're sending into the server. Okay, so post mapping to /dogs /dog ID /adoptions. This will be the request parameter, request body. Okay, and this will be a path variable. All right, so now I'm going to use the dog service that we just created, inject that into the constructor, and we'll say this .service.adopt dog ID owner get name for the name, and we'll just call that to do the adoption, okay? Pretty straightforward stuff. All we're doing is delegating really to the service which we're injecting via the constructor. Pretty straightforward. I think that should work. Anything wrong with that so far?
Looks good so far.
Okay, we've got dev tools. Did I start this program at all?
No.
No, okay, let's just start it the first time. Okay, up and running. So now, I'm gonna make a call. I'll say curl, name, Josh, content type, application JSON, localhost, 8080, dogs, 45, that's our dog Prancer, / adoptions, okay? So if we look at the command line there, it says adopted, dog ID, and we see that now the image is there and the owner is now Josh, right? So if I go here, check the dog table, and hey, it worked. I've adopted the, it doesn't feel like the victory that it really should, because now I have 2 terrible dogs. This is not a good result, but at least it's worked, okay?
It's a result.
It's a result. It's anyway, fine. But okay, but that's it. It's a bit of a toy. It's not really all that real. Like if you actually wanted to take possession of a live creature in most jurisdictions, there's a lot more to do than updating a single column, a single field in a single database in some table somewhere, right? You might have to, for example, schedule a consultation with the vet. So maybe I have another module here, another package here called vet. Now vet, that's the English word for veterinarian, which is a doctor for dogs. So thinking about it, it should be called dogtour. Okay, so we're going to call it that. At service. And we'll say public void checkup int dog ID. And we're going to just print out scheduling dog checkup for this, right? For this dog ID. Good. So I'm going to integrate the dog tour into this process, right? I'm going to go back to my service down here, here, and I'll inject that here. I'll say private final dog tour. Okay. Add that to the constructor, and voila. And I'll go down here and I'll say this.dogtour.checkup dog ID. Great. So I can restart that. I should have done dev tools.
You'll get there.
I completely forgot. Okay. It's so fast either way. I don't really notice. But okay. So go here. Restart, there we go. And if I go back to the command line, it says, hey, schedule the dog for checkup for 45, and then we adopted him. Great. It's worked. I've integrated these 2 things, but really, did I need to? Did I need to inject the dog tour into the service for the adoptions? Are these things really related, or it feels like they're maybe orthogonal? They both need to get done, but one is not dependent on the other. The outcome of the adoption is not dependent on whether I've scheduled the adoption or not. That's going to be an async thing anyway. And so in this case, I also want to avoid the situation where I have a so-called God class, right? Where you have too many objects being injected into the service, creating too many concerns. This becomes very difficult to test. So it becomes hard to test, hard to isolate the invariants, and so on. So I want to see if I can back out this change a little bit here. Let's see if we can do this more elegantly, okay? So I'm going to get rid of that, and I'll back out the injection for the dog tour.
I was a little worried. I saw a public keyword there somewhere.
Oh, yeah, I don't like that at all. So what I'm going to do is I want to find some other way to integrate that code. And one way to do that was to use messaging, an event-driven architecture. And this reminds me of a great blog from Martin Fowler back in 2017, before the COVID pandemic, or BC. And this blog asked the question, what do you mean by event-driven? In it, he talks about 4 different kinds of uses of events. The first kind is event notification, where you send a message or an event to another subsystem or service telling it that something has happened. No details about what in particular has happened, just that something has happened. There's a lot of examples of this in everyday life. Like if you write JavaScript, I'm sorry. But if you do, there's an event called onload, right, which is telling you that the document's loaded. Well, there's only one document, so therefore there's only one event, and you don't really need in the event to have a pointer to the document because you know which one it is. It's the only one that there could be, right? So in this case, I don't need extra context attached to the event to know what to do with that event. Okay? Event notification happens in real life as well. I was just in India like about a month ago, and so happy. There you can rent a car to take you from customer to customer, and it's not all that inconvenient to do, and it's fairly cheap, so it's pretty easy to do. But mind you, I have a foreign overseas number from the perspective of somebody living in India, and so it's actually pretty expensive to call me. So he told me, look, I'm going to ring you right around the time when I'm supposed to pick you up, but I'm not going to connect. I'll ring you, you'll get the notification, and then I'm going to disconnect. So I got the event, but I didn't get any context transmitted with the event. I knew that could only mean one thing. He's downstairs, right? Saves him money. I got the event. I could act on that without any extra details. He didn't have to tell me what to do. I just knew based on that conversation. Maybe that's enough, right? It saves you from having to send extra data in the messages. But sometimes you want extra data in the messages, right? That extra data helps you understand how to act on the message without having to contact the source system. If you transmit deltas, state changes in the system, in the event, that's called event-carried state transfer. And this is really nice because now you have an audit log of all the transitions in the system, all the state changes in the system. If you're building a system with lots of different moving parts, even if it's not microservices, even a monolith, well, for example, might have a Redis database for constant read access to data. You might have an Elasticsearch full text search for full text search optimized reads. You might have a Postgres for online transactional write data, right? All these different data sources have a view of the data, but who has the single source of truth? Your messages do. If you deleted Postgres, Elasticsearch, and Redis, but then replayed all the messages in the same order as you got them, you could reconstitute the Postgres, the Elasticsearch, and the Redis. That's called event sourcing. And the idea that you have a system that has a lot of moving parts that are optimized for different read and write modalities, well, that's called CQRS. If you understood these 4 patterns, congratulations, you're an architect, right? This is not hard to understand, but it's all based on the humble event. So would it surprise you to know that Spring actually has an event bus that's been in Spring for years? It's called the Application Event Publisher. And by the way, I love the history of Spring. How many of you have seen this? This is Spring1.io. History of Spring. It's a video game that you too can play at home. So we go through here, see the history of Spring, look at the open source project, Spring Framework released, going down, going Spring Data, you got Spring Batch and Spring, all this cool stuff, Spring Integration, Spring Boot. Now we're in the clouds. Hope that's not too subtle, okay? Spring Cloud 1.0, we've got Spring Cloud Task, we've got Spring Cloud Stream, going down. Now we're down in the water, navigation, maritime themes, Kubernetes, right? Governor and Greek. You get to Gateway and the modern era, Spring Boot 3, and in this game, everybody wins, of course. Everybody wins. So anyway, moving on. I love this application event publisher. It's been in Spring forever, since Spring Framework 1.1.1, right? Since 2004 or so. So I'm going to use that event publisher to publish an event. And this is where I'm going to make my first deliberate choice to make my types public, right? This is going to be a public event that will conduct information about the dog, okay? And I will consume it over here in the service. I'll say @EventListener, dog adoption event, dog adoption event. Now I don't need that public keyword anymore, which is nice. Because remember, Java types are by default package private. IntelliJ, for some reason, insists on making them public. But they should not be public, right? If all your types are going to be public by default, just use C. You've got a global namespace, just use C. Be honest with yourselves, right? We have a nice object-oriented language. Why veer so dramatically from the precepts of the language, right? Object sharing, information hiding, and encapsulation is a core tenet of object-oriented programming. And for some reason, I see this anti-pattern all over the place, where you have code bases designed in such a way that you have something like this. You have app.controllers, app.services, app.repositories, right? And then you have models, right? And in order for this scheme to work, the models need to be public so that you can access it from the customer repository, and then that needs to be public so that you can access it from the customer service, and then that needs to be public so you can access it from the customer controller. This is a complete breaking of the sort of basic ideas of object-oriented programming, because we're designing, we're modeling, we're packaging by role. Don't do this. I think this came from the Ruby on Rails community. Where else do we copy what they do? Why this, of all the things? So instead, do app.customers, and then just do, customer and customer controller, and so on. And the nice thing about this is nothing needs to be public. And you can be very deliberate and very clear about when things are public, okay? So I'm going to make sure I have only one very public thing, that's this event, that I'm going to communicate from one boundary to another. I'm going to publish this event in the service, and then I'm going to consume it over here in the dog tour. So I'm going to say print out, and then run this, okay? Got the event. Let's go ahead and restart it. I should have done DevTools.
You'll get there.
Son of a gun. Okay. So I hit publish. Good. I've adopted the dog. I've decoupled one module from the other, but they're still kind of coupled, because technically, if I have this thread running and it takes like 5 seconds, then I have to wait for that, right? So I don't want that to happen, because what will happen is that the adoption will block for 5 seconds while we wait for the dog tour to do its work. So maybe I could make this thread at a sync, but then I'm no longer in the same thread and therefore no longer in the same transaction. Maybe I use transactional to start a new transaction. But this is all very, very sort of, I don't know. So instead, we're going to use something called application module listener. This is from Spring Vaadin. Spring Vaadin gives us tools to sort of modularize our code base. This pairs quite nicely like a fine red wine with another feature called republish outstanding events on restart and initialize schema. So modulith schema initialization is equal to true. So I'll go ahead and restart. Oh, okay, I keep forgetting to do the dev
you
tools.
probably might have actually needed it.
Maybe, I don't know. So I published that. It published immediately, but the other one's going to wait 5 seconds, okay? And in the meantime, you can see over here, we've got a new table called this. Well, why didn't that finish yet? Where's my controller? What? Oh, that's embarrassing. Okay, so go back to the service. Thank you, sir. Okay, there we go. Publish. This.publisher, the publish event. Command-Shift F9. There we go. DevTools. Let's go. Okay, so now, restart. It's published the event, and then about 5 seconds from now, we should see in the dog tour, it should say, scheduling the pickup for the dog. Hopefully. 5,000. What did I do wrong? Oh, is the service transactional? Let's see. Dog controller. Maybe this needs to be oh, this is the service. It's not transactional. Okay, let's do that again. Command-Shift F9. Okay, this time with more gusto. Okay, published again. And then 5 seconds later, there you go.
Yeah.
Yay. Okay. So, we see we have this table here called event publication. This table actually has a log of the listeners listening to the different events, the event types, the payload exactly, and the publication date and the completion date. So you can actually, you actually already saw it in action. I'm going to publish another one, refresh. You can see that it's got a listener that's in the middle of processing it, but I've just Control-C'd the process. I've taken the energy away from the computer. This is not completed. So now I need to restart the application, and we'll see that it's going to reprocess the missed message. This is going to guarantee that I get the best of both worlds. It's processing asynchronously, but also it'll eventually converge on a correct state when the application restarts. The best of both worlds. I don't have to wait, okay? Now this is good. I've got modular code. They're decomposed. I like that. But what do I mean by modular? Well, you can actually test it, right? Spring Modulith looks at your code and understands how these things are related. It's backed behind the scenes by Arch unit or Arc unit or however you want to pronounce it. So I can verify the structure of my code. I can print out the modules. I can even document the modules like this, write documentation. And then I can restart this test like so. And let's see what happens. The test is green. Great. It logically understood these different modules exist here. They have the relationship. Here are the dependencies, the beans, etc. But even better, because it knows how these things are arranged, it actually can document it for me as well. So if I go to the generated sources folder, to the Spring Modular docs folder, click on components.plantUML, it gives me an architecture diagram showing how these modules relate to each other. This is a C4 architecture diagram. This is much nicer than the status quo where you log into a wiki and there's an architecture diagram from 2 years ago that has long since diverged from the actual state of the architecture. Good. So we have modular code. We can see it in action. We can decompose through messaging. I think we're in a good place. But how do we find that dog? How do most people find their dogs? Most people, hopefully, don't find it in an ad that went viral about how demonic and hateful their dog is on Facebook, right? Hopefully, that's not how you find your next dog. So that's not going to work for everybody. It worked for me. I knew about Prancer because I saw this ad. How do most people find their dogs? They're going to have questions.
AI?
Yeah, they're going to have an assistant, right? So remember, we're building a dog adoption agency called Pooch Palace, right? And we want to support the adoption of dogs. We need to provide an assistant to help people answer questions about their dog, about their prospective dog. So let's go over here and build a new assistant called Assistant.
Good naming.
Yep, I'm very good with names. Get that from my father. And we're going to create a bean here that will allow us to chat with the chat model. This chat client allows us to do that work, okay? So, return builder.build, build, okay, and I'm going to build an assistant that will run, and when it runs, we're going to ask the model some questions to give us some help, okay? Assistant runner, chat client, CC, return. Okay, so the question we're going to ask it is, hey, do you have, because we want to find Prancer, right? So do you have any neurotic dogs, okay? Dot call dot content, and that'll give us a string back that we're going to print out. So there's this content, okay, or reply or whatever, and we'll use var. Look, it's like JavaScript. Var, okay, and system out reply, etc. Okay, reply. So I'm going to run this now when the application starts up. Command Shift F9, and when the application starts up, it's going to make a call to our model. It knows to connect to the model because behind the scenes, I specified the Open API key, right, for my Spring AA module. I've already exported this as an environment variable. Forgive me for not leaking my API credential to you. Just trust me, it's been done, okay? So it worked. It says, hey, I don't have any physical possessions or pets, but I can certainly provide information. So clearly it doesn't know what to make of our ridiculous question. Why would the AI have a pet? Right? It doesn't understand that we're asking about some sort of inventory of available dogs for adoption, right? An inventory or like a catalog or a dogalog of dogs, okay? So what we need to do is to give it some sort of framing to help it understand how to interact with people that ask it questions. The system prompt helps govern the way it should respond. So let's do that. I have a system prompt. I'm going to cat the file and copy it to my paste buffer. So system prompt, there it is. Wait, no, that's wrong. We'll use dog. There we go. Okay. So that'll copy and paste that. Go back over here to the controller, the assistant, and we're going to say var system equals this. Paste that in. Paste this here. We'll say default system prompt is equal to system. And now we're going to just Command Shift F9 the whole thing again. And it says, you are an AI-powered assistant to help people adopt a dog from the adoption agency named Pooch Palace with locations in, oh dear, that's embarrassing. Sorry, Frankfurt, okay. Antwerp, Seoul, Tokyo, Singapore, Mumbai, New Delhi, Barcelona, San Francisco, and London. Information about the dogs available will be presented below. If there's no information, return a polite response suggesting we don't have any dogs available. Okay, simple enough. Go here, and did I stopped the process, didn't I? So it's not, I can't restart it. Here we go. Process, not the test. Okay, so it's going to run now, and it says, I'm afraid we don't have any specific information about the temperament or behavior of the dogs currently available for adoption. However, each dog has a unique personality. Our staff at Pooch Palace would be more than happy to help you match you with a dog that fits your preferences and lifestyle. Please visit one of our locations or contact us directly for more personalized assistance. Great. It's not the response we want, but it sounds like it's trying to help. You might be forgiven for thinking you're talking to a real person that is, for whatever reason, unable to bring up the dogalog full of dogs, and they want to help, but they can't at the moment, right? It sounds like it's a real person working for the dog adoption agency called Pooch Palace. So what we want to do is get all the dogs that are in the dogalog and make it available to the model. But we don't want to send all the dogs. We want to send only those that might potentially match. So we're going to do some sub-selection. And the way to do that sub-selection is to put it in a vector store which supports similarity search, okay? There are many different vector stores out there, including PG Vector Store, Elasticsearch, Cassandra, MongoDB, Weaviate, Milvus, and countless others, and Spring AI supports all of them. So I'll say dog repository at find all for each dog, okay? And we're going to create a document that will have information about the dog that we're going to store in the vector store, okay? So it's just going to be a string, literally a string. So ID, percent, name, colon, percent, and description, colon, percent, dot formatted, dog.id, dog.name, dog.description, and then we're going to write that out to the vector store like so. So add.list.of and document. Now this is a document about dogs, so obviously document, okay? There we go. Good. Now, we have our document. We're going to write that out. We still have to tell our chat client how to talk to this model. And so what we're going to do is we're going to add an advisor. This is sort of like an interceptor for our code. And what we're going to do is we're going to just add one advisor telling it to consult the vector store before it adds data to the request that gets sent off to the model to produce a response. This is going to, in turn, need a vector store. Okay, so we'll do that. We'll say pg vector initialize schema. And then I'm just going to do Command Shift F9. And that's going to restart. Now remember, friends, this is Java. This isn't JavaScript. This is not PHP. We don't waste time writing needless and pointless code, right? I woke up this morning saying, oh, did it not? Oh, let me just full restart. I don't know what just happened. Don't care to find out. Looks like it's doing a thing.
Yeah, it's still running
Yeah,
vector
good.
embeddings.
Okay,
So
let's-
if you don't know what's going on, come to my talk later today. I'll
Yes.
go through like all the steps behind the scenes if like the 30-second intro wasn't enough.
There you go. So this isn't, remember, we found our dog. Yes, we have a dog named Prancer who's described as neurotic. If you would like more information in adopting Prancer, please let us know. Remember, this isn't JavaScript, this isn't PHP, this is Java. We don't waste time in code. I woke up this morning and I said, I want to write a retrieval augmented generation pipeline. I wrote one line of code and I got a retrieval augmented generation pipeline. What did you do this morning, right? This is an amazing result. So now I have this up here. I'm going to go ahead and comment out the reinitialization. There's no need to initialize everything again. And I'll disable the PG vector store schema initialization. I think I'm pretty happy, but at this point, we have a string. This is hardly an API upon which to build an abstraction. So what I would like is to have some sort of type that I can use to pass around the rest of my code. So I'll create a record here called a dog adoption suggestion, okay? And I'll encode there int ID, string name, and string description, okay? And I'm going to ask the model to send back that response as the entity here. Let's try that. And I'm going to do Command-Shift F9, restarting it one more time. Now the reply is actually a type-safe dog adoption suggestion. Okay, and now we got back Prancer with ID equals name is equal to Prancer, and description equals a demonic, neurotic, man-hating, child-hating dog that looks like gremlins. I think we've got a type-safe system and an assistant. I think we're ready to go. What now?
That's very cool. I think there's one problem here. Like most of the folks I talk to don't want to adopt their dogs through an IDE.
Oh, so you're saying
could we
should? That's
could we
fair.
build a front end for this maybe?
Okay, so wait. So first order of business. Do I just delete this controller? Like,
yeah.
Okay. I'll let you take us home because this is the easy part. The
so
boring stuff.
if you're watching the live stream, you can now put it to 2x if you want the coding speed to stay the same. And all right, so we'll go into the POM file here first, and I'll close that. And we are gonna where's that? There it is. We're gonna put that back in. We're gonna click this little button that I always forget to
Most
press.
important button.
And what is the command?
Re-import. Yeah.
The shortcut was something.
Command-Shift-I, I think.
All right, good. We're going to go in here. We're going to create a Java class. We're going to call this our adoption view, maybe.
Yeah.
We're sticking to naming.
Great
we're
names.
good at
really
that.
good with names.
We are going to publish this at just you seem to have some sort of AI assistant. That's good.
Keyword the word public. Sorry.
All right, there we go. Nothing to see here. We're all good. So we're going to do the adoption view. You kindly created a service for me. That was very nice. So we're going to use our, was it dog adoption?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Adoption
Service, yep.
Adoption service, there we go. And we'll call that our service. And I'm thinking, like, let's list these in a grid. And if I want a dog, I want to see the dog. It just makes it much more visual. So let's create a var grid is equal to a new grid that shows dogs. We have dogs. That's cool. And we're going to import that, and then we're going to add that before we forget. That's like the number one thing I always forget, besides extending from a Vaadin class like vertical layout. All right, good. All right, so then obviously we need to get all the dogs. That would be good. So we'll call grid.setItems with whatever we get from calling service.findAll.
Now earlier you suggested that method could be called dogpack, and I approve of that.
Okay, well, sure. Dog pack.
Yes.
All right, good. So we'll obviously need to create a method here that returns a collection of dogs, which is a dog pack, as Josh pointed out. And which collection might we want? IntelliJ.
Are there others?
Repository.findAll. All right, good. So we have that. We're going to go back to our view. We have the items here, and then we're going to just start creating some columns here. So I said, first of all, I want a component column just to show an image of a dog. So we have a dog coming in, and we're going to create a image that can be a new Vaadin image. So this, make sure you get the right one, not Java Swing image. That would be bad. Takes in two things, source and alt. So we can call our dog, not dog, there we go, dog.image, dog.name, like that. We're going to set the image size so it's reasonable because they were very big.
Yeah.
Like you can definitely zoom in and see them. and then we're going to return the image. All right, so what else do we need? We need probably name, description, owner. All right, let's see if this works at all. So let's go ahead and build this.
Command Shift F9.
Yep, and then we're going to go here. And just go ahead and before admitting defeat and like assuming that I did something wrong, we're going to rebuild
because you added the Maven dependency, right? So
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, the port's already in use.
How's the port?
I don't know. You have to disable one of them.
We're running 2 instances. How did we do that?
I don't even. IntelliJ, where are you, buddy?
It works.
Somehow it works.
Let's just
Why
disregard that.
argue with success? Okay.
If it works, don't touch. Like that's like, let's just like first semester in coding school.
Yeah, really, just don't breathe on it.
All right, good.
Aw,
right.
look at those dogs.
There they
They're
are.
so cute.
And it is. Like there's Prancer.
Yeah.
But obviously, well, we can see Josh already managed to
Right.
secure Prancer, but maybe somebody else wants a dog too.
No.
So let's add one more column here. So we want to have that little adoption form that takes in who wants to adopt and a button for that. So let's do another one. So grid.add component column. And again, we get the dog here, and we're going to create just a tiny inline form here. So we're going to create a adopter, which is a new text field like that. And again, not AWT.
No.
That would be weird. Or button.
Does Vaadin have an IntelliJ plugin you could just like mask out the ought and swing suggestions when you're doing Vaadin code?
We could probably, yeah.
Okay.
So we obviously want to adopt, and then we're going to do grid.set items. Just get an updated dog pack, and then we need to, of course, return these. So I'm going to wrap them
Horizontal
in
layout or
a
something?
new horizontal layout, so just so they're next to each other, and go ahead and build this. And hopefully, since we're using DevTools, it's going to flip this. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, like more reasonable. Like the column sizes are weird. I don't know why this isn't the default, so
we'll figure it out.
We're just do grid.get columns for each set auto width, just like let the description be bigger here.
Right.
All right, so good. That looks nice. Yeah. Then I can get a dog too. Now we both have a dog. High five.
Ah, it's a result. It's a result. Look, we live in an amazing time. You can get a lot of stuff done with just a little bit of time. And now I have 2 terrible dogs, and you have a good dog. So I think it's been a good day. Thanks, my friend.
Yeah.
Good job. Thanks, everybody.
Go to production.
Should we take this to production? Yes. Do we have time? Oh, we have 3 minutes.
We have 3 minutes.
We have 3 minutes. No, stop the applause. Really, you're wrong. It's just all wrong. It's all wrong. Stop it. Sorry, I'm kidding. We forgot to do the most important bit.
Well, one of the important bits. So obviously we wanted to take this to production.
Right.
Because that was your first favorite.
Right.
Place.
Yeah, my first favorite one.
Good.
So we got to get it there.
Yep.
Are there any, we're going to use GraalVM as a native image.
Yep.
Any hiccups you can foresee?
The problem here is I was paying attention when you were coding, and I saw you use this entity, dog adoption suggestion. So that's going to use reflection.
Yeah.
That might trip us up if we don't register a reflection binding for that.
Right.
So we're going to tell GraalVM we're going to need reflection for this particular.
Does that work on a bean method? I don't think I've ever used it there. That's cool.
It works.
Oh, good.
Yeah, let me see. So let's go in here, and we're going to do Maven. Then we're going to use a couple of profiles. So P native, P production.
You really got to earn this.
Yeah.
They don't make this easy. This is between the Spring and the Vaadin plugins interacting. There's like 2 different profiles you got to remember. Does anybody have any elevator music to play?
Tommy, play the music.
No, that'd be so cool if we actually had that lined up.
Okay, good.
Yes. Okay, let it do its thing. This will take. We actually have enough time. I was so worried that we wouldn't have enough time. Why was I worried? It's Vaadin in Spring. Of course we have enough time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now you actually get to experience this live, but it didn't take more than just over a minute when we did this earlier, which is not bad for. I mean, we're cramming a lot of stuff into this native image.
Yeah.
There's Spring, and there's a Tomcat server,
Web
and there's
stack,
a front end, and an AI, and
Modulith,
runtime
messaging, all that kind of stuff.
A universe, building a universe.
Yeah, yeah.
The entire universe is
Don't think about it. Look at, don't ask questions. Remember, I have 128 gigs of RAM. It needs 20%. That's a percent of how much RAM I've got. That's still 26 gigs of RAM. That's like slack. That's too much. You know. By the way, I forgot one interesting thing. The dog adoption event. This is an event, and it's getting published in the same code base. If I have the Spring Modular support for publishing it, I can actually use Kafka or RabbitMQ or Spring Integration, and I can have this published automatically as an event over the broker as well. Okay, so it ran.
You want to run it?
Yeah, okay, here we go. Target, service. Oh, okay, right, the port. Okay, hold on, wait for it. We got
Find
one.
the right one.
Yeah, stop this. Goodbye to that, goodbye to this. Boom, look at that. 0.3 seconds. Now we go back to the UI, refresh. Now we're in production. All right.
Boom.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Who had fun?
All right.
Who had fun?
Thank you so much. We have lunch out into the lobby after we take a couple questions.
I have a question first. Who had fun? Okay. Who learned something new? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Our job is done. Okay, questions. I'm happy to take them. Yeah, and I'm going to give them to him.
How about we can take 2 or 3? I've got a microphone.
Question is like, is it lunch already?
Lunch is out in the foyer, and the tables are just next door. So it's a buffet out in the foyer, and then tables in the conference room next door for lunch.
We'll be around here.
We'll be
So you
around.
can't get
Someone
rid of
has a
me.
question, I can pass the microphone over. Don't be shy. Well, you answered every possible thing. Thank you. That was amazing.
All right.
Cheers.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, big hand for Josh and Marcus.
Woo!
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good stuff, man.
You're amazing, my friend. Don't fall. Please don't fall.
I'm going down.